Hello there, and welcome to Gaming with Ungainly Titan. I do occasionally play games that aren't World of Tanks, more so in recent times than I did at the beginning. The other thing is, of course, that until about, 3 years ago now, or nearly 3 years ago, when I started playing World of Tanks, I generally was pretty much a super casual gamer. I had in the early days of PC games, when I managed to get a PC first, been pretty obsessive about gaming, but I didn't have the time. It kind of faded away, and I'd gotten out of the habit. And with the exception of games like Civilization, I wasn't super obsessive about games. When I started playing World of Tanks, I was pretty obsessive with that, and that's the way I kind of play. Some games I'm very obsessive, and some games I dip in and out of. So this thing was given to me as a present, and I found it to be a really engaging game. It starts off with an animated prologue, which you saw there, where the younger brother is at his mother's grave, and he sees and remembers how his mother died, and then he gets called by the brother and to help him carry the injured father to the healer. And that introduces you to the game. The game mechanics are really simple. You move each brother with an analog stick, and they interact with the environment using the triggers. You basically pull the trigger and they do what it is they're supposed to do. And that's it. That's pretty much it. The challenge really is to keep the brothers coordinated, to keep them together, because you're operating with your thumbs and fingers of different hands, and if you're not used to that, it can be quite challenging. Certainly, I suppose I'm a relatively clumsy person sometimes, and I find this kind of stuff to be quite a challenge. Probably be quite trivial for piano players and other kinds of people like that who are very good at getting their fingers to do all sorts of things independently of each other. However, the basic format of the game is pretty much what you see here. You have various things to do, levers to pull, obstacles to overcome, and it usually requires one or other or both of the brothers to be doing different things at the same time. For instance, here to get up the next elevation, the older brother is going to give the younger brother a punt so that he can scramble up to the kind of 3 steps of a ladder that's hanging off the top there. As soon as I can get him in the right location, he then climbs up, drops down a rope so that his older brother can climb up. And then when the two of them make it to the top, they have to go over to the windlass in order to wind up the platform that the cart is on to the proper elevation. It's usually pretty obvious what exactly the puzzle is. And I've never found that I had to backtrack at any point. Dead from my clumsiness occurred moderate regularity. So anyway, they brought Dad to the healer, and the healer announces that basically Dad's screwed. It's no hope unless they can go far off and get the magic quetzal. Fortunately, is a scroll describing where and what they have to retrieve. There's no language. Not a word of a recognizable spoken language occurs anywhere that I'm aware of. So off they go, over hill and dale, solving various puzzles, figuring out how to get past the various obstacles. And there are quite numerous obstacles, from the bully in the village that won't let them in through the village gate, to various other things that they will meet along the way. A lot of the scenery kind of gives rise to questions as to what's going on and what's in the background, and is quite intriguing in its own right. So they meet people, make friends, and sometimes evade enemies. And overall, I would recommend it as a nice way to pass away a few hours. It's quite engaging, very intriguing, I suppose. I'm not sure of exactly the word it is. It isn't full of high excitement or anything like that, and it's something you could pick up and drop off as and when you want. There are plenty of save points. It's not overly complicated, and it's quite a bit of fun. it is as interesting for the unfolding story as it is for the actual solving of the puzzles. You're constantly wondering what they'll meet next and what will happen. And for the most part, for at least for the earlier part of it, there is what do you call it? A sense of that they'll make it. That it's mostly them against the environment. It does get a little darker and more sinister, I think, towards the end, and you're beginning to wonder what kind of dangers they'll run into in the latter part of the game. It is the story element that is, in my opinion, both the greatest strength and the greatest weakness of this particular game. You become invested in the two characters. All their interactions are pretty simple, and they're very limited. The number of things in the environment which they can interact is actually quite limited. However, in many cases, there is each interaction is done by basically a little cutscene, a little standardized video where they do whatever it is they're doing with the element that they can interact with. There is, however, enough sort of subtle differences between what the bigger brother and the little brother will do in a given interaction to sort of give you a hint as to the character of each of them and to make them more like people in your mind. And as you go along, you become more and more interested as to how this is pan out and how many hoops they have to jump and what exactly is it they're supposed to collect. What is the magic MacGuffin or that they're supposed to find to save their father? There are once I did actually go online to look up through a walkthrough because I had got myself stuck. I had got myself into a position where I had put one of the brothers into a point where he couldn't interact with the element of the environment that he needed to, and it was my own fault. Basically, I was a bit impatient. I could have played around with it a bit more. At this point, however, I've kind of played through it. I've enjoyed the game. I thought it was really good, and I don't particularly want to go back and play it again. Certainly not for achievement hunting and exploring the extra bits of the environment, though that is an option. However, like I said, the story side of it is also, I think, the biggest single weakness of the game. And I'm going to spoiler the game now. There is definitely the ending needs to be discussed as far as I'm concerned, because it triggers one of my pet peeves. It's one of the things that can really tick me off in a game. It is my view that if and I suppose we might as well get straight to the spoiler. The spoiler is basically one of the characters, one of the brothers, dies at the very end. He dies not a result of anything that you do. There's no choices that will lead away from it. There's no choices that will cause it. He dies on the cutscene. There's nothing you can do about it. It will happen. Now, it adds huge emotional weight to the story, and I can understand it from a storytelling point of view. But I don't regard games as a pure storytelling medium. I think the antagonists in a game's fate should rest with the players. It's just an attitude of mine in particular. And I get kind of ticked off when I see stories, particularly RPGs, where the player's fate is taken out, where major decisions are basically forced on the player, railroaded. To use a term from people use in Dungeons and Dragons and other role-playing games, where the DM doesn't allow you deviate from his predetermined plot. I'm personally of the opinion that if you have a predetermined or plot, now admittedly a computer game has to have a predetermined plot. They are railroads by the standard of pen and paper RPGs. But at the same time, I think major aspects of a character's fate should be within the player's purview. It should be the player's decision as to what the character does. If a character dies in the service of some greater good, then that should be the player's choice. If he decides not to die, he should have another way of achieving it. Maybe a lesser way. Maybe there is a penalty if he doesn't do the greater good option, but it should be the player's choice. if you want to seal the character's fate, if you want to write out that kind of stuff into it, you should be making this a movie or writing a novel. So I don't like that aspect of it. It lessens the game for me. However, other people might not feel the same way, and I think it's definitely worth the first playthrough. It is a very good, a very engaging game. It does explain the rating that the game receives, because other than that, there's nothing in the game that justifies a 16 rating. And to be honest with you, I think the average 12-year-old should be able to handle it with parental, should we say, help. So that's all, folks. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you again soon.